Begin today the Gemara on the bottom of Chav Beis Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom where it says Ve'ema. So we're in the middle of a machlokes here between the Rabbanon and Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. What are we speaking about? We're speaking about the person, the erva of achaisai. So the Gemara before said that the erva of achaisai, so if it's just a sister, but it's not a daughter of your father's wife, because this is a sister that your father had a relation with a woman that was not his wife, a nanusa, let's say. So then in such a case, there's only one erva for achaisai. How about if besides the fact that she's a sister, she's also the daughter of your father's wife? She was born from a real marriage. Bas ishtai. So according to the Rabbanon, in such a case, there's going to be 2 lavim. And he brings the 2 psukim. One it says ervas achaischa, and one it says ervas bas eshes avicha. But Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda says it doesn't matter if it is the daughter of your father's wife or if it's not the daughter of your father's wife. You always chayiv only one for the fact that she's your sister. Because even in that pasuk where it says ervas bas eshes avicha, it says achaischa, that you only chayiv for the fact that she's your sister. So now, what the Gemara is discussing here is, if so, according to Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, why does the pasuk say again ervas bas eshes avicha? If it doesn't add any additional lav when she's also the daughter of your father's wife, it doesn't make a difference if it's a wife or it was an anusa. So why does the Torah use this terminology of ervas bas eshes avicha? So, avicha, that is. So the Gemara explained that according to Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, it's coming to say an exclusion, and that is if this is a sister that was born from your father having a relation with a woman that's either a shivcha or a ivedes kechavim, whether a shivcha kananis or a goy, such a kind of sister is not a sister. There's no kiddushin there, there's no possibility even of marriage b'chlal. So therefore for this, there's no yichus b'chlal, maybe even, so over here there's no inyan of achaisai. That's the miyut, and that's why it says, eishes avicha, someone that's a yid, that's possible to be a wife. But if it's a shivcha kananis or a vedes kechavim, is not teifes kiddushin b'chlal. It's not even possible to be a wife. That was the miyut. So now the Gemara is going to ask a few different questions here. How do we know that that's what the miyut is? When it says eishes avicha, maybe it's coming to exclude something even more. Frek the Gemara ve'eme, maybe we should say prat la chaisai me'anusa. That maybe it's coming to tell you that you only chai for the erva of a sister if she's actually a daughter of your father's wife. Maybe a sister that was from a relation that your father had with a woman that was not his wife, maybe you're not chai for that. So instead of saying that the exclusion is to say that it has to be a woman that could be your father's wife, maybe it's actually coming to say that you only chayiv for this erva of a sister if it's actually a daughter of someone that actually is your father's wife. And then if otherwise there's no erva of a sister. So the Gemara says, no, hahi le'matzis amris. This you can't say. A sister that came from a relation that your father had with a woman as an anusa, that is a sister. And the Gemara is going to show how when it comes to a son or a grandson, so we say that it's considered to be a son or a grandson even if it came from an anusa and not from a marriage. So the same will apply to a sister as well. So where do we see by a son and a grandson? So the Gemara brings midirave. The Rava asked the following contradiction. Ksiv, in one pasuk it says, ervas bas binchoy bas bitcha loy segala. That there's an erva of a grandson, or a granddaughter that is, whether your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. That's one pasuk. So now from this pasuk we would understand, habas benod dida, or bas bita dida shari. So that means only your grandson. But how about if it would be your wife's grandson? Whether her daughter's son, her son's daughter, or whether her daughter's daughter. So from this pasuk it would seem that over there is no erva. But later on in the parsha, there's another pasuk where it says ervas isho bita leisegala, and then it says as bas benov as bas bita. So then the pasuk says that there is a erva for your wife's granddaughter. So what's the story? Is there an erva for your wife's granddaughter or not? So the Gemara answers. Oh, Keitzad, what does this mean? Kan ba'oinsin and kan b'nisuin. When it comes to the case of oinsin, so then bas b'no and bas bita is going to be allowed. If it's not your son, it's only her son. So if this is a woman that you only had a relation with her ba'oinis, and she also has her grandson and her granddaughter, which is not your grandson, granddaughter, that's going to be allowed. But kan b'nisuin. But if it's a wife that you married, so then even her grandson and granddaughter, which is not your grandson and granddaughter, will be aser. So what do you see from this? That the pasuk where it says ervas bas bincha bas bitcha, that pasuk is talking about oinsin. even regarding a case of Einstein, of a marriage of a son or a grandson that was born from Einstein. And still, what's the Torah saying? That your grandson that was born not through marriage, but your grandson that's your grandson through an Einis, is still your grandson. There's still an erva for that. So just like we see over here, Benigea, two children, Bas Benoi, Bas Bitoy, that's considered to be your children, even though it was only an Einis, the same is also true Benigea to a sister. That we say by a sister that it's your sister, whether she was born from your father's wife, whether she was born through an Einis. So that can't be the miyut. Fragt the Gemara, again going back to this pasuk of Ervas, Bas, Eishes, Avicha. Why does it say Eishes, Avicha if, according to Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, there's no additional lav for it being Eishes, Avicha? So what is it coming to exclude? Okay, maybe I should say, Prat l'chai v'lavin. This comes to exclude if a father got married to a wife which there was a Issa lav. Maybe I should say that the child that's born, the daughter that's born is a mamzeres. And why would I say that the daughter that's born is a mamzeres? Because the kiddushin with a chayev lav never took effect, and maybe such a sister is not called a sister because the kiddushin never took effect. Maybe that's what I should say. It's coming to be memayit. Eishes avicha is only a kosher marriage that was allowed, not a lav. But Rav Papa answers, no, we can't say that. Chayav lavin tafsi b'kiddushin. If you marry someone which is a chayev lav, even though you're not allowed, but the kiddushin takes effect. And the children are not mamzerim. We had this many times before, and here the Gemara brings the source. The source for this is because there's a pasuk in Parshas Kiseitze when it talks about the Yerusha. So it says over there, Kisiyana leishtei nashim. If a person has two wives, ha'achas ahuva, one is beloved, v'ha'achas snua, and one is hated. And then the pasuk there says that it doesn't make a difference. The b'chayr always gets the double portion. So the question is, what does this mean? Loved or hated? V'chiyesh ahuva lefnei hamakim v'yesh snua lefnei hamakim. By the Eibishter, is one beloved or one is hated? In other words, the Gemara is asking, the pasuk there is saying a chiddush that even though one is hated and one is beloved, nevertheless the b'char still gets his double portion. By the Eibishter, this doesn't matter, beloved or hated. So what kind of chiddush is there in this? So what does this mean? Ella, rather the pshat here is ahuva means ahuva b'nisueha. And snua means snua b'nisueha, beloved in the marriage or hated in the marriage. And that is because the beloved in the marriage means that this is a marriage that is allowed, and hated in the marriage means that there's a lav. The marriage is with an aveda. And what the Torah is saying is that even though this marriage was done with an aveda of a lav, still the Yerusha remains the same. And regarding both of these wives that this person married, what does the Torah say? The expression the Torah uses is kisiyana. Kisiyana means they were married to you. Because the word siyana, tihiyah, havaya, means that it's a marriage that took effect. So you see over here that when you get married to a woman, even though it's an aveda, it's a isalav, but the marriage took effect, the child is your child, so the sister is your sister, so you can't say that that's what the pasuk of Eishes, Bas Eishes Avicha is coming to exclude. Fragt the Gemara, but how about ve'emim? Maybe I should say, prat l'chai v'krisis. Maybe it's coming to exclude a sister that was born from a marriage where the wife was a chayiv krisis. What's the halacha if the wife is a chayiv krisis? So then the marriage never took effect, and the children are mamzerim. So maybe such a sister is not a sister that there's a chayiv erva for. So Rava says no, but there's another pasuk where it talks about a sister, and there it says Amakra ervas achayscha. When it comes to a sister, Bas Avicha, daughter of your father, Oy Basi Mecha, or daughter of your mother, and then the pasuk adds, Meledas Bayis, Oy Meledas Chutz. Whether she's born in a house or whether outside. What does this mean? Bein Sha'imrim Loyla Avicha Kayam. Whether this is a sister that's born from a marriage where we say to the father, you could remain married to your wife, Bein Sha'imrim Loyla Avicha Haitze, or even a marriage that is a chayiv krisis and he has to send away his wife. Either way, Torah says either way the erva of the sister still applies. So that cannot be excluded. Back to Gemara, now that you have this riboy here, you marbe from Meledas Bayis and Meledas Chutz, maybe let's go a step further. Maybe we should also say, whether we say to the father about his wife that you can remain married to her. Whether we tell the father you have to send away his wife. And the Torah says that either way this is still a sister that's born from this marriage. And maybe that means that even a sister that's born from a marriage to a guy or to a shivcha kananis, that's also a sister. And before we excluded that from what it said about Eishes Avicha, So the Gemara says, no, but we had before the pasuk the exclusion. Amakra bas eishes avicha. When the Torah uses the term eishes avicha, what does the term eishes mean? Misha yeshle ishes lavicha. Only someone where there's a ishes, where a marriage can take effect. That excludes a sister that's born from a marriage to a guy, where over there the marriage never took effect. So basically we have one pasuk that's marbe and one pasuk that's mamayit. So the pasuk that's marbe, we say, comes to include even a sister that was born from a marriage to a chayiv krisis, and the pasuk that comes to exclude, we say, refers to a marriage that comes from a marriage to a guy. So the Gemara asks in this, Isa, what do you see to say that it's marbe, dafke the chayiv krisis, and it's memayit the marriage from a guy? Answers the Gemara, mistavre, it's more logical to say, chayiv krisis havele lerabais, a sister born from a marriage of chayiv krisis should be included in being a sister, shekain tafsi bem kedushin la'alma. Even if for you, she's a chayiv krisis and the kedushin doesn't take effect, but somebody else, this is a yid, your wife is a yid, for someone else she could get married to, so she's a woman that is in the world of kedushin. So therefore, this sister is more of a sister. But the Gemara says there's a svara to say the opposite. Shivcha vayvedes kechavim. If a person is married to a shivcha or a guy, havelele rabbis, maybe that I should include, that the sister is a real sister. Why? Di migaida lididei nami tafsi b'kiddushin. Because if you megaya any of them, if a person is megaya the shivcha or the vayvedes kechavim, so then the kiddushin will be taifus with them, not only for someone else, but for you. Answers the Gemara, no, that's not considered to be an advantage in the marriage. Because l'chi megaira, if he would be megaira, gufa chrinihi. It's like a different body, it's like a different person. Once you megaira a person, as we learned yesterday, kekatan shenay ledami, it's like a new, like born again, so therefore that's not, you can't say that the kedushin would be taifus in her, then she's like a new person. Okay, so this is the conclusion of Rab Shimon's opinion. Not Rab Shimon, sorry, Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda. Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda is learning out from the extra words of Bas Eishes Avicha to say that if your father was married to a goy or a shifcha kananis, and that's how the sister was born, the sister is not a sister. According to the Rabbanon, they do not learn that from this pasuk of Eishes Avicha. They learn from Eishes Avicha that it's a second lav. So if so, from where do they know that a sister that's born from this marriage of a shivcha or a vedes kechavim, that it's not a sister? Asks the Gemara, they learn it out from what it says by a shivcha itself. If you look in Parshas Mishpatim, it says, Nafkalu, they learn from what it says there, Maha'isha v'yiladeh tia ladena. That if an Eved Ivri gets married to a shivcha kananis, a master is allowed to marry off an Eved Ivri to a shivcha kananis, but then what happens with the children? The children remain by the master even after the Eved goes free. The children have no yachas to you; they remain with the wife, with the master. So therefore, the sister that's born from such a marriage is not your sister. There's no connection to the father, and therefore they remain by the master. That's the source. So the Gemara now explains, why doesn't Rabbi Yosi learn from there? For Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda does not learn from there, because he says, Chad b'shivcha. I need one pasuk, which is this pasuk we just quoted, Ha'isha v'yiladeh. That teaches me regarding a sister that's born from a shivcha, from a shivcha kananis, that it's not your sister. For this is Isser of Erva. And the Chad be'vedes kechavim. And I need the other pasuk over here of Bas Eishes Avicha to say that if your father's wife is a goy, not a shivcha, but a goy, that it's not your sister. With tzrichi, and I need a pasuk for both a shivcha kananis and for an Evedes Kechavim. It's not the same thing. And the Gemara explains, if it would just tell me the source regarding a shivcha, then I would say the reason is, Mishum, over there's a certain disadvantage by a shivcha. Mishum de'ein lo chayis. A shivcha kananis, there's no yichus by their children whatsoever. Rashi here brings, based on the pasuk, that it says, what Avram tells Eliezer, Shvulachem poyam achamor, when he was going to the Akedah, tells Eliezer, stay here with the donkey while I go with my son. And the Gemara says, Amadoim al-Chamor, that Eliezer, which was the Eved Kanani, and the same with the Shivcha Kananis, by a Shivcha they're compared to a donkey, just like by animals. There's no yachas, there's no halacha of relation. So to Benegeh to a Shivcha Kananis, there's no halacha of relation whatsoever. That applies to a goy, a Shivcha Kananis. But Rashi says, by a goy, there is a halacha of yichus. By a goy, the yichus goes with the father. When you make a Misha Berech for a goy, you say ben the father, not ben the mother, because the yichus goes with the father. I think I once saw this by dollars. No, someone that mentions by the Rebbe a name of a guy, and the Rebbe wanted to have the name of the father. The yichus by a guy goes with the father. So that's a certain advantage that a guy has. So maybe I would think that by a avolivedas kechavim there is yachas. By a guy there is a yichus. So maybe I would say that this doesn't apply, and maybe the sister that's married from a marriage to a guy, that comes from a marriage to a guy, is a sister. And the reverse, there's a certain disadvantage by avedas kechavim. V'yashmin avedas kechavim. If we would only say that marriage to a guy is not a marriage, I would say a guy has no connection to mitzvahs whatsoever. So that's why this marriage is nothing. Al shivcha the shayche b'mitzvahs. A shivcha kananis is chayiv b'mitzvahs. We learned this in the Gemara Chagiga that a evet kanani, a shivcha kananis are chayiv in mitzvahs like a woman. So maybe I would say I don't go so far to say that the marriage is not a marriage. Tzriche, that's why I need a pasuk of a isha viladat tiladinel, that for shivcha kananis the marriage is not a marriage and the children go to the adin. That's according to Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. So I need a pasuk for both, for shivcha kananis and for avedas kechavim. Now the Rabbanon, according to the Rabbanon, what's their source for both? Ashkechan, shivcha. There's only a source to say that with a shivcha the sister is not a sister. But avedas kechavim minalu. From where do they learn out that a marriage to a guy is not a marriage? So if you'll say, I compared the avedas kechavim to the shivcha, but we can't say that, as we just said. Hanu, that is, mitzrich tzrichi. We just explained, you need a pasuk for a shivcha, and you need a separate pasuk for avedas kechavim. They're not the same. So what's the source according to the Rabbanon? They do not learn it out from the extra word of Eishes Avicha, Bas Eishes Avicha, because they use that to say that there's a second lav by a sister that's also a daughter of your wife, of your father's wife. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the source is Mishum Rab Shimon, the name of Rab Shimon ben Yochi, Amakra. There's a pasuk that says, here this is a pasuk that speaks about that a person should not allow any of his children to intermarry with one of the 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael. So the pasuk there before this says, don't allow your daughter to marry their son, don't allow your son to marry their daughter, not to intermarry with any of the 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael. And then the pasuk says, why not? What's the reason? Ki yaser es bincha me'acharai, because the son of a guy that's going to get married to your daughter, it will then cause your son to be taken away from Yidden. So what does it say here in the pasuk? The pasuk says ki yaser. Yaser is lashon zachar, meaning that if the father is going to be a guy, what's going to happen if you allow your daughter to marry the father that's a guy? The Goyish father will schlep away your grandchild from Yiddishkeit. So what does this mean? Bincha Yisraelis. That means if the father is a guy and the mother is a Yisraelis, then the pasuk is saying that the grandchild is your grandchild, Kari Bincha, that is your child, because that child is going to be a Yid, since the mother is a Yid. And therefore what the pasuk is saying is that the father, which is a guy, is going to schlep away this grandchild that's born from a Yiddish mother from Yiddishkeit. But ve'ein bincha bamin avedas kechavim Kari Bincha. But if it's the mother which is a guy, and the father is a Yid, so then the pasuk does not use a lashon nekeva to say kisasir, that the Goyish mother is going to schlep away your grandchild. If the mother is a guy, so then the child is not a Yid. So therefore the mother is not schlepping away your grandchild. Once the mother is a guy, the child is not already yours anymore. That the pasuk doesn't say. So ve'ein bincha bamin avedas kechavim Kari Bincha, that's not your child. Elo bina, it's her child. So what do we see from this? That if you get married to a guy, the marriage does not take effect, and the child that's born is not your child. So therefore the same thing applies to what we're speaking about here in this Gemara. Beneged to a sister that's born from a father that got married to a guy, it's not your sister. That's the source according to the Rabbanon. So the Gemara says in connection to this, the same thing. Amar Ravina said, Shema mina, it's from this pasuk that we learn, Ben bitcha baman oived kechavim Kari Bincha, a grandchild that's born from your daughter, which is a Yid, and the father is a guy. That's your child. The child is a Yid. But if it's a grandchild that's born from the mother being a guy, and it's your son that's a Yid, that's not your grandchild anymore. There's no relation. This is one of the chidushim of the yichus of a Yid. The yichus of a guy goes through the father. The yichus of Yidden goes dafka through the mother. The Rebbe spoke about this a few times by Riches, when the Rebbe was speaking about the Indian of Miyu Yehudi. And one of the things that came up is that they wanted to say that just like if your mother's Jewish, so you can make them a Yid. If the father is Jewish, so the child's also a Yid. So the Rebbe said, no, Pitayr is dafka the mother that carries the child for 9 months. And we see that by a woman there's a special koyach of amunah, special koyach of sfiris hamalchus. The Rebbe spoke by Riches, the special mile of the mother, that the Yiddishkeit of the child comes dafka through the mother. On the other hand, though, the Rebbe said, when it comes to determine whether the child is a Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, that comes through the father. Depends if the father was a Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. To determine the specific level of which tribe in Klal Yisrael the child belongs, that's the father. But the essence of the child, whether he's a Yid or not, that comes dafka through the mother. That's the Chiddush over here. So the Gemara, shall we say that Ravina holds, Oivid kechavim ve'eved habal bas Yisrael? Does that mean that if the father is a guy and the mother is a Yid, Havlat kosher, that means that the child is considered to be a totally kosher child, meaning to the extent that this child could even get married to a kohen, to anybody. So the Gemara says not exactly all the way to that extent. Nehid the mamzer lehave, a child that's born from this marriage, according to Ravina, is not a mamzer. We once had before in the Gemara. The Gemara brought one opinion that it is a mamzer. But we paskin like Ravina that the child is not a mamzer, but on the other hand, kosher nami lehave. He's not considered to be a totally kosher child. Yisrael pasal mikri. A child born from a Goyish father is called a Yisrael pasal, and he can't get married to a kohen. She can't get married to a kohen. And the Gemara just clarifies another question here. That l'chayre, we're learning it from this pasuk where it says ki yaser es bin chamiacharai. The pasuk where it talks about intermarriage. Don't allow any of your children to get married to a guy. But what's the context of that pasuk? In that pasuk, it's actually speaking about not allowing any of your children to get married to any of the 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael which Yidden came to conquer. So the Gemara asks, how do you know it applies to any guy? So maybe, b'shiva umais ksiv, that pasuk is only speaking about one of the 7 nations. How do you know it refers to any other nation, any other goyim as well? Maybe there I should say that if your son gets married to a daughter of any of the other nations of the world, maybe the child will be a Yid. Who says it's the same thing? Answers the Gemara, no. When it says ki yasir, those words ki yasir as bin chamiachara, when it gives this reason, what's the reason? The pasuk is not just saying the isser of intermarriage. It's giving the reason, don't allow the father to take away the child. That shows you the reason, l'rabis kol hamasirim. So that will include any father that can go ahead and do this. Otherwise, why does the Torah give the reason? You can just say the Isser. The Torah doesn't usually give a reason for the Isser. So the Gemara says, you're asking a question, why the Torah gave a reason, you're saying that that's extra. Says the Gemara, lav dafka, that's extra. You're right that when the Torah gives a reason, it would be extra according to Rab Shimon. Why? The darish, time of the kra. Because Rab Shimon, he darshans reasons for the pasuk. He said, Rab Shimon says, anytime the Torah says a mitzvah or a lav, you always have to look at the reason and understand the mitzvah or the lav based on the reason. So you don't need the Torah to give the reason. Without even the Torah giving the reason, I would understand and explain the pasuk according to the reason. Rashi gives an example. It says, for an almana, you're not allowed to take a mashkin, a collateral from an almana. So Rab Shimon says, that's only if this widow is poor, because then you're taking away things that she needs. But if she's rich, then there's no problem to take a collateral from her. Why? Because you look at the reason of the pasuk. So the same thing over here. Without the pasuk saying ki yasir, I would understand that it means don't allow your children to intermarry because the father is going to schlep away your child that's a yid. So why does the Torah have to say ki yasir? So it's extra. It's coming to teach me not only the 7 nations, but even all the other goyim as well. But according to the Rabbanon, when it says ki yasir, it's actually not extra. The fact that the Torah gives a reason, so Rashi says, Adarabah, maybe you should say that the Torah here is being mechadish this reason to tell you that only these 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael, where the Torah describes that they mamish served a lot of Avodah Zarah, so only for them, the Torah doesn't want you to allow your daughter to intermarry to a guy, because the father, which is an Avodah Zarah, will schlep away your grandchildren from into Avodah Zarah, from Yiddishkeit to Avodah Zarah. But maybe it doesn't apply to any other nations. Maybe this is taka a chiddush that the Torah is giving a reason dafka over here for these 7 nations. So so how do we know that it applies to any other nations in the world? So the Gemara says, you're right, according to the Rabbanan it would be a question, but man tane de palagale de Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, who is the Tana? Who is the Rabbanon that we're speaking about in our sugya that's arguing on Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda? We're coming to explain his opinion, Rab Shimoni. The Tana over here that argued with Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda is Rab Shimon. So according to Rab Shimon, ki yasir is extra. So therefore we could learn out from here that when your daughter gets, when your son that is, gets married to any goyish daughter, so in any nations of the world, the child is not a yid. So according to Rab Shimon, this is a good source for any nations of the world, and therefore that's the Tana that was arguing over here with Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. Continue the Mishnah on Amud Beis. So Teilige Mishnah, mi shekidish achas mishtei achayis. Person gets married to one of 2 sisters. But Veni Yidei is a men Kiddush. He doesn't know which one of these sisters he got married to. He's not sure which one it was. You have two sisters that are maybe look similar or whatever it is. Maybe he sent a shliach to be Mekadesh and he doesn't know which one it was. So what do you do now? So Noisin get lezu, veget lezu. So if you want to be able to allow any of them to get married to anybody else, or if you want to get married to them properly, first you have to give a get to each one of them. Misafik, you don't know which one was married to you. Now, what happened if you passed away without any children? So now the mitzvah of Yibum comes up, and you have two women that are a suffix, which one is your wife? V'loi ach echad. And he has only one brother. So what does this one brother do? Chaylitz l'shteyen. He's going to have to give chalitze to both of them. He doesn't know which one is his Yevamos. So he can't do Yibum for either one of them. So Rashi explains, you can't say that he should do chalitza for one of them and maybe do Yibum for the other one, because this goes back to something that we learned before in the Gemara. You're not allowed to do Yibum for the sister of a Zekuka, a sister of a Yevama that's connected to you. Achais Zekukasai. And Rashi says, just like by Achais Zekukasai you're not allowed to do Yibum, similar when it comes to Achais Chalutzasai. The sister of this woman that you gave chalitza to, you also can't get married to. So therefore, what are you going to do? You're going to do chalitza for one and marry the other? Maybe the one you're marrying is achais chalutzasa. You're not allowed to marry her. Or if you're going to do it the other way around, you're going to do yibum first for one of them without giving chalitza to the other one, for sure it's not allowed. That she might be the sister of the true Yevama. So what's the only thing you can do? You got to give chalitza to both of them. But how about Hoyoloi Shnayim? If there were two brothers here that are available to do Yibum, so now because there are two brothers, so Echad Chaylitz ve'Echad Miyabim. So first, one brother will go ahead and do Chalitza, and then after this, the second brother can go ahead and do Yibum. Once the first brother does Chalitza, so now Rashi explains, Mimanav Shach, either way, the second brother can go ahead and do Yibum, and it's not going to be a problem. And the reason is, because once the first brother did Chalitza, if the second brother goes ahead and does Yibum, so if this was the real wife, so then what's the issue? She's the real wife, so he's doing Yibum. Very good. If you're going to say that this is not the real wife, and the other one that you did Chalitza for, that's the one that was the real wife, that's not called Achais Chalutzasai. Once the brother did Chalitza, so that removes completely any connection, any zika that there is with that wife. The other brother already took care of that, did the Chalitza, so there's no zika anymore for that. And now you can go ahead and get married to the other sister. So therefore, once the first brother did chalitza, the second brother could do yibum. So the point there is, if there's one brother, so you're limited, you're stuck, you're going to have to chalitza to both of them. If there are two brothers, so because there are two brothers, this could sort of be rectified. Let one brother do chalitza, and the second brother can go ahead and do yibum. Sagt der Mishnah weiter, Kadmu v'kansu. What happens if they both went ahead, they didn't ask Bezdin what the halacha is, they both went ahead and they both did yibum. So not b'di'evet. If they both did yibum for these two sisters, which is a suffix, which one is the real wife that you're supposed to do yibum for? So they weren't allowed to do this, because each one is getting married to maybe to a sister of the Zekuka. But once b'di'evet they did so, ein maitziyim miyadam. So at this point we don't take out these wives. So Rashi explains, each one could say, look, I'm the one that got married to the Yevama. And also Rashi says that another important point here, the main point here is, after the fact, so each one is not anymore a sister to a Zekuka. Because once the brother was Miyabim, so if that's the real Yevama, so then the Zika to me is cut off. Because my brother already did the Yibum. That's it. My brother was Miyabim her, now it's his wife. Now the sister is allowed to get married to me. So once both of them do Yibum, B'di'eved, each one is married to their wife, and it's not a sister of a Zekuka. Two brothers are allowed to get married to two sisters, so it's not an issue anymore. That's B'di'eved. Okay, the Mishnah now is going to go through another few cases, but it's basically a repetition of the same point, applying it to other cases. I'm not going to go through the whole Arichas again, but I'm just going to touch over here the Inyan Kipshuta the way it is. Zok the Mishnah...
Only one is Mekadosh, and then I made him zusammen Mekadosh, then...
They did the Yibum, they can't do the Yibum Mamish in the same second. I mean, or maybe even if they did do the Yibum in the same second, I'm not sure if there's a difference. Okay, let's see the Mishnah weiter. Shnayim shekitzu shtei achayis. How about if the case is you have two brothers that got married to two sisters, which is allowed, but in other words, it's two brothers to two sisters. Or actually, what am I saying? It's not necessarily two brothers, two people that have nothing to do with each other, and they got married to sisters. Zeh any Yedeya is a Kiddush, V'zeh any Yedeya is a Kiddush. Each one of them does not know which one of the sisters he got married to. So what do you have to do? Zeh noisen shnei gittin, v'zeh noisen shnei gittin. So both of these brothers have to give 2 gittin because of the suffix. Mesu, if both of them passed away without children, lezeh ach or lezeh ach, and both of them only have 1 brother. So what happens if there's only 1 brother and there's a suffix who the Yevamos is? So then zeh chayletz l'shteim, v'zeh chayletz l'shteim. So for both of the brothers of each one of these people are going to have to do chalitza for both of them. As we explained before, there's a suffix here, so you have to do chalitza for both of them. How about if lezeh echad or lezeh shnayim? If one of these people that passed away has 1 brother available to do yibum, and the other person that passed away has 2 brothers available to do yibum. So hayachid chayletz l'shteim, the one that there's only 1 brother to do yibum. So like we just said, that 1 brother has to do chalitza for both of them. V'hashnayim, but if there are 2 brothers available to do yibum, so then similar to the halacha that we said before, echad chalitz v'echad miyabim. Once 1 brother does chalitza, now for the second brother to go ahead and do yibum, there's no issue whatsoever. Either this is the right wife, and even if not, once the other brother already did chalitza, this wife is not a chayzuk kasi anymore. Once the chalitza is done, that was the whole connection to that wife is off. And same thing, the Mishnah continues, like we learned before, Kadmu v'kinsu, if both brothers didn't ask Bezdin, they both went ahead and did Yibum together, Ein metziim miyadam. B'diavad, we allow them to remain married. Mishnah continues, regarding these 2 people that were married to 2 sisters and we're not sure who to whom. So l'zeh shnayim or l'zeh shnayim, if both of them passed away, and there are 2 brothers that this person has and 2 brothers that this person has, so achiv shel zeh chayletz la'achas, so the brother of this one does chalitza for one of them, v'achiv shel zeh chayletz la'achas, and one of the brothers of the other one also does chalitza just for one of them, and then the second brother, achiv shel zeh miyavim chalitzasa shel zeh, v'achiv shel zeh miyavim chalitzasa shel zeh, and then the second brother could go ahead and do yibum. Same halacha like we learned before. Whenever there are 2 brothers, the first brother does chalitza, and the second brother can then go ahead and do yibum. Kadmu shnayim v'cholzu. If both of them went ahead and first did chalitza, so now lo yivmu. Once they both did chalitza, they should not do yibum. Lo yibmu hashnayim. They should not both do yibum. Ela echad chalitz ve'echad miyabim. One of them goes ahead and does chalitza, and the other one goes and does yibum. Kadmu v'kinsu, if both of them go ahead and got married to them, and both of them did do yibum, then ein metziim miyadam. B'diavad, once both of them did yibum, like the Mishnah said before, we allowed them b'diavad to remain married to both of them, and the reason is because at this point each one is married to another one, and there's no zika, no connection to both of them, and therefore the marriage stays. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Talk to Gemara, Shma Mina, what do I understand from this? Kiddushin, she'ein mesurin lebiyah, have a kiddushin. It seems from here that anytime you have a marriage that happens in such a way that there's no biyah possible, you can't have a relation with this wife that you would just mekadesh, that kiddushin should still take effect. What is the Mishnah here saying? A person is mekadesh and he doesn't know which of the 2 sisters is his wife. So he can never have any biyah, no relations possible. But still, we said the Kiddushin takes effect, and he's going to have to give a get to both of them. So we see that the Kiddushin takes effect even if it's impossible for there to be biyah. Now Rashi here brings that in the Gemara and Kiddushin, this is a argument between Abaye and Rava. But over here we see a clear Mishnah that the Kiddushin takes effect. Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Hacha b'mayaskina. What is this Mishnah speaking about? Keshehukru ulubisayf nisarvu. When the person got married to his sister, to one of the sisters that is, he knew who is his wife. But then later, there was a confusion. And later, there was a problem. He didn't know which one is the right wife. But originally, the marriage was a good marriage, which was Mesud and Labiyah. And he was able to get to be with her. Dekanami, I'll prove to you that this is the pshat in the Mishnah. Because the Mishnah here says, Ve'eino yoideya. Ve'eino yoideya means now. In the present, he doesn't know. Ve'loikatani ve'eino yedua. Doesn't say that he never knew who his wife was. Shma Mina, so that language makes it clear that the case over here is that he knew before, but now he doesn't know who his wife is. So now, my kamashmalon. If that's the case, that in our Mishnah it's speaking about that he knew l'chatchila who his wife is, and only now he doesn't know, so what is the chiddush over here in this Mishnah? It's obvious that this marriage should take effect. There's nothing lacking in this marriage. Says the Gemara, you're right, that's not the Chiddush. Seife it's Tzrichalei. The main Chiddush of this Mishnah is what it says afterwards, the halacha regarding Yibum, that meis v'lo yach echad, that if he passes away and he has one brother, so then chaylitz l'shteyen, so that one brother has to do chalitza for both of them, and hayu lo shnayim, if there are two brothers, so then echad chaylitz ve'echad miyabim, so one brother, the first brother goes ahead and does first chalitza, and now the second brother could do Yibum. So the Mishnah is teaching me dafke michlatz v'hada yevumi, that the order here must be that first you do chalitza, and then the second brother could do yibum. Avol yevumi bereisha, but if one of the brothers is going to want to do yibum first before the other brother did chalitza on the other woman, that order is not allowed, because the kapaga ba'chayzuku kasai. At this point, before the other brother did chalitza on the other sister, maybe the yibum that you're doing is a sister of the other one, which is really your wife. She's really zakuka to you, and you're doing yibum with the sister of the zakuka. So to do yibum and then chalitza is a problem. But to do chalitza first, have the other brother do chalitza first, so he separates her from any connection to you, and now you can get married to this sister. There's no problem to get married to the sister. Either this is the right Yevama for you, and if not, it's just a woman you can get married to. Why not? It's not a sister anymore to the other one, because the chalitza was done, and then she's disconnected to you. Dr. Gemara, it said in the next thing in the Mishnah, Shnayim shekitshu shtei achayes, same halacha will apply to people that got married to two sisters, and that each one of them is not sure which sister they got married to. So the Gemara says the same question and answer. You would think that Shema Mina, I could learn from here, Kedushin She'em Mesurim L'biyeh, when you have a Kedushin where it's not exactly known who the wife is, so you can't have any relations, have a Kedushin, but still the Kedushin takes effect. Answers the Gemara, that's not the case. The case over here is that in the beginning you knew, both of these people knew who their wife is, and later it got confused. Because the Mishnah says that in the present you don't know. It doesn't say that they didn't know from the beginning. Shema Mino, that proves it. Again, the Gemara asks the question, Umay kamash malon. So what is the chiddush over here of the Mishnah if this marriage is a regular marriage? Answers the Gemara, Seife, it's Tzrichalei. The chiddush is in the Seife, where it says, Meisu. If both of these people passed away without children, and Lezeh Echad or Lezeh Shnayim, one of them has one brother to do Yibum, and the other one has two brothers to do Yibum. Hayachid Chaylitz L'shteyim. So if it's one brother, he has to do Chalitza for both of these sisters. V'ashnayim, and when there are two brothers here, Echad Chaylitz ve'echad miyavim, one of them does Chalitza, and the other one does Yibum. That's the Chiddush. The Seif is the Chiddush. So the Gemara asks, why is the Sefer a Chiddush? Pshita, this is obvious. Hainu Reisha. Isn't this the exact same thing as the Reisha? We're applying the exact same logic to the case where there's one person that doesn't know who he got married to. Now to this case, where there are two people that are confused who is their wife. But the halacha is the same thing. So what's the Chiddush in this case? Answers the Gemara, the Chiddush over here is, Ma'od Teimeh, I would think to say, Ligzer, Terei, Otucha, that in such a case, where one person passes away, and there's one brother to do Yibum. And the other case is the other person passes away and there's two brothers to do Yibum. Maybe I should make a gzeira of Terei Yotocha. The two and the one could get, the halachas of these two could get confused, and maybe I should compare them to each other. So therefore, Kamash Malan, therefore the Gemara tells me that I don't make a gzeira to compare them to each other. When the one brother must do Chalitza for both of them, but the two brothers, I'm not geyser and say that there as well, they must do chalitza to both of them. No, one brother could do chalitza and the other brother could do yivum. And again, the Gemara, another chiddush the Gemara says over here is regarding the order, that the chalitza has to be done first and then only afterwards the yibum. V'dafke michlatz v'hadi yivumi. First comes the chalitza and then comes the yibum. And Rashi explains when the Gemara over here says v'dafke michlatz, what this means is, so you had one of these people that passed away, and he only had one brother available to do Yibum for both of these sisters, and we're not sure who he was married to, so that one brother has to do Chalitze for both of them, and then the other person that passed away and had two brothers, so one brother has to do Chalitze, and the other one could do Yibum. So when the Gemara says that first you do Chalitze, and afterwards you do Yibum, what the Gemara means to say is, all three Chalitzes, the chalitza, the two chalitzas of the one brother, and then the other chalitza of the other brother from the other marriage, all these three chalitzas have to be done before the yibum. Why is that? Because over here, in this case, in addition to the fact, in the previous case in the Gemara, the reason why you have to do chalitza before the yibum is because if you do yibum first, then maybe you're getting married to achayis the kukasai. So first, one brother does the chalitza to remove that zika from that sister. And then you could go ahead and do yibum. Over here, when we're talking about two people, and there's a suffix, which one of them got married to which sister, there could be another issue. That if you're going to go ahead and do yibum first, how do you know you're doing yibum for a woman that was married to your brother? Maybe she was married to the other person that's not your brother at all. So then maybe you're getting married to someone which is Yevamos l'shuk. She's not even your Yevama. She's supposed to be getting married to the other one. So therefore you have to do chalitza first. Only after the chalitza, the other brother does the chalitza first, and you're not going to be over on the isser of Yevamos l'shuk. That's what the Gemara here says. Al v'yevumi b'reisha. But if this one brother that is allowed to do yibum is going to go ahead and do that yibum first, that's not going to be good. The kapaga b'yevamos l'shuk, because if the brother from the other person that passed away did not do chalitza first on both of these women, so perhaps this is really the yevama of the other person, and now you're getting married to a yevamos l'shuk. Sagt the Gemara weiter, and then the Mishnah said lezeh shnayim or lezeh shnayim v'chulu, that if you have two people that we don't know which sister they got married to, and then they passed away without children, and both of them have two brothers available to do yibum. So why does the Mishnah have to say this case again? Seemingly, it's a repetition of the same point before. So the Mishnah over here says that the halacha is one brother does chalitza first, and then the next brother could do yibum. The same like we said before. So why is it repeating the same halacha over here? Why does it say this again? Hainu hach. It's the same point like we learned before. And says the Gemara, there's a chiddush here. Over here, I would think to say, Ligzar dilma miyabim b'loy chalitza. In this case, there's excited to say that maybe you'll come to do yibum without any chalitza at all. So Rashi explains, in this case, what's going to end up happening is, both of these sisters, in the end, you could do yibum for them. As long as the first brother is going to do chalitza, the second brother is going to do yibum. And the same with the other person that passed away. The first brother does chalitza, and the second brother does yibum. So in the end of the day, we can do yibum for both of these sisters. So because you're ending up doing yibum for both of these sisters, maybe we should be geyser that people are going to say, we can do yibum. So who needs the chalitza at all? They're going to skip the step of chalitza since they see you can do yibum for both of them. And this is excited, dafke here. In the previous cases, where you can't do yibum to both sisters, you're ending up doing chalitza for one and yibum for another, it's understood that you can't skip the step of chalitza. But over here, since in the end you're doing yibum for both of them, I would think you could skip that. That's the excited I would make, so therefore you should maybe say that you can't do yibum for both of them. Kamash Malan, that's what the Mishnah here says. As long as the first brother does chalitza to one sister, to the next sister, the next brother could do yibum. And the same with the other two brothers. One does chalitza for one of them, and the other brother could do yibum for the other one.